All right. Okay. Call the meeting to order of the Colorado City Metropolitan District. Begin as we do every meeting with the Board of Directors study session.
Okay, first on the list tonight, there's a bid in there for a piece of property. It's Unit 17, Lot 9. Our book value is $10,641 on it. It is 1.9 acres. It is I2, which is industrial, light industrial. The offering price is $12,414. My recommendations on it is, I believe it's over 15,000. I believe probably in more of the 15,000, 20,000 range than the 12.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
May I?
You may.
Looking at this, I actually looked up a few of the sites and kind of tried to find different sites as far as assessed value and what the county considers market value. And it looked to me like that, of course, the timing is certainly different. But gosh, they range all the way from 15,000 to 50,000. There was, this is almost 2 acres. And I saw a couple of them that were smaller than this, that were actually, had been sold here within the last 5 years for well over 20,000. So I suggest we consider value there.
Okay. Other thoughts, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
years ago, an I started at 25,000, and there's also no comps included. They're putting that back on us, and that's one of our requirements for consideration. I yield.
All right. Any other information to give on number one? Okay, Jim, you want to move to 2?
Number 2, CTF agreement with Pueblo County. As we did last year, there is an agreement that we do sign for the $130,000 that we're getting. It is for the golf course. It is just the basic regular contract that they put with us, that we pay for it. They turn around and reimburse us for the equipment as it falls within the contract.
And you set up to 130.
Yeah, it's up to 130.
Comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
may.
sir, you may.
So on this here particular one, so we did this last year for the golf course. We're doing it again this year for the golf course, which I got no problem with. This money can be used for other things if we request it for other things.
Yes. Next year, what we're looking at is the campground and upgrading it.
Okay, just as long as, I only speak for myself, but I believe that we should be spreading this out.
I agree.
So 2 in a row for the golf course, I believe, is plenty. And I think next time we need to make sure that we're starting to address some other stuff.
Definitely.
One of the things that I would love to see addressed is the swimming pool.
One of the reason why is when I first got here, we had a $70,000 deficit the year before I got here, and then a $30,000 next year, this year. And then, so what I did is look at how can we change the attitude and the environment of our golf course to where it makes money, and that's why part of this was set up that way. Last year we had COVID come in. Yes, it did help our golf course. The other aspect of it is we ran short on golf carts because of COVID. Because you could only have 1 per golf cart. This will give us a fleet of, I think it was 672 or 73 golf carts, which will give us enough to have 4 golf carts per hole, which would give us plenty enough golf carts to satisfy our course. So that was one of the main reasons why of the driving forces has seen it happen and unfold during COVID. If we do have a situation like this where I have to have one person per golf cart, we have enough to do it. Because we only had, at the time, like 57 golf carts, and that would leave half of the cars open and people waiting to get tee times to get a golf cart. So that was part of the reasoning behind this.
I yield.
Any other comments on the CTF agreement? Yes, sir, Bob.
I'd like to address what the manager just said. When you applied for this, COVID wasn't an issue. It became an issue. We understand that. And if you were concerned about losses, you should have been concerned about the swimming pool and everybody else as well. So to point strictly at the golf course and they need this and they need that is not a good argument.
Point,
and I'm with.
Point being, Bob, can I address you?
No, you can address me when I'm done. I'm with Mr. Collins on this has been ongoing. This is twice in a row now. It needs to be addressed this next year. No one said don't get money for the golf course. It's the playing favorites to the golf course without addressing the needs, because the needs of the swimming pool have always been bad. I mean, they have been worse off than the golf course. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
All right.
Can I?
You may.
With the golf course, the golf course was shut down from March to April. We were able to open back up in May. As for the swimming pool, they weren't even allowing a swimming pool to open up in June. So that's part of the reason why we've seen the trend. Yes, COVID was in fact in full bloom at that point. And that's why the decisions were made to do that.
Okay. Anybody else on the CTF agreement? Okay, number 3.
I received a letter from Rick Van
Nope.
Meters aren't pronounced. Van Meter? Okay. I just want to make sure I don't mess it up. Everybody messes mine up. It says here, this letter is to appreciate my interest in serving as a volunteer member of the Colorado City Architectural Advisory Committee. I do not have any specific experience in interpreting or enforcing covenants or building codes. However, I do have 44 years of work experience in various fields, including over 24 years as a special agent for the FBI, and another 14 as a contracted investigator for the FBI. I believe that my life experience has been such that I will be able to carry out the duties of the advisory committee as I understand them. I appreciate your consideration for my interest in serving the community in this capacity. Sincerely, Rick Van Meter. And he has his address and stuff there. I ain't going to announce it.
Thank you. So, Jim, was there no information on number 3?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to...
Not that I didn't want to hear about you, Rick. I was just trying
Okay.
to...
I skipped it because I don't have that much information about it. I know Greg. Yes, sir. I just walked in. Filters for the plant. Right now, the filters that we have bought, at the beginning, we're running right about 300 gallons per minute through that skid on a regular basis. The ones that we went through, we've changed them out twice, we've soaked them, we've tried everything. We're still only maxing out about 120.
One skid is 100, and I showed Neil today 165, and number 1 is
So what we're looking at is if we have to, we're going to probably end up having to replace 2 more sets.
Yeah.
And that's, we're looking at $90,000. Or just under 90. The bad thing is they come from Australia. And our big water push usually comes about the middle of May or
April. about April 15th, and then that's 80 bars of wood.
Now, with the failure of them, it could have, we had the problem in last May when it went down, and we had the problem with the coagulant that we were adding, and it got over coagulated, overtreated, and that's where the first problem started. We were able to clean them out at that point in time, got them back where we've been averaging 2 to 250 out of them. This point, I don't know what happened, whether it's due to water temperature, COVA, the manufacturers of the filters, they cannot give us an answer as to why themselves, as to what's creating it. But with the new filters, we're not having the problems with it. We have made adjustments with our coagulant now that it is within our SCADA system, and it monitors, and if it goes over, we have a limit on it. If it goes over that, it sends out an alarm to either shut down the plant or get somebody in there to see why it's going. We also used to regulate the coagulant with a, how do you want to say, treat all system, where it just added 2 drops no matter what in a certain period of time. Whereas now it's regulated out of how much flow is going through it, and that's where we needed to be. So we've made those 2 adjustments and safety features to add into it so it wouldn't happen again. I know we've tried 3 different ways of cleaning them, setting them in acid, and setting them in
Citric acid, citric acid, chlorine, washing them by hand, injecting air. We've done pretty much all we can do.
I know Neil's been up there and he's seen what the inside of them looks like. It's like a real brown, waxy stuff and it's the outside of the filter we can get clean, which is maybe the first 5 or 6 strands around it. But when you get into the core of that filter, it is just a heavy black, brown, like the flagpole, just solid in there. And when we do backwash, we've done everything to try and break this stuff free, and we haven't been able to. We've tried every method. Like I said, the problem is these filters have to come from Australia, so you're looking at probably a 2 to 3 month lead time on them anyway. All I'm asking is the board that permission that we can get them ordered and on their way. I know, looking through numbers, we do have some money that we can use to do it. It's going to tap into what we came out above last year, but we're still trying to go through this process. We're going to probably process it a couple more times. The guy said even if we don't take them, he has places that need them, but he wants to have us have a PO to show that they're ordered for us, especially.
So I have no desire to throw anybody under a bus, but do you feel relatively confident that the changes we've made will protect the new filters when they get here? We can't do this very often.
I believe so. With what he's added in.
No, I understand that. I just want to know how sure you are that we've tried the right thing.
I think we have, yes, sir.
With the injection pump going now by volume instead of by time,
Yeah.
that's one thing that it helps in that situation. The other thing is having it that it is on our computers, as it tells you how much is being allotted, and if it goes over a certain point, it will
We
send
have
out
an
an
alarm
alarm.
shut down now.
Okay.
better we'll take it.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, so the alarm system to shut down, the control system on the coagulant pump, is that pre-coagulant in dosage or after?
What do you mean?
Well, does it stop the dosage rather than
When it hits a limit, it will shut
it
down.
will stop, so it won't allow to overdose? Do we, Carter Lake has the same problem, the same system. Are we
Carter
comfortable,
Lake and them, yes, they have the same.
are we comfortable enough that we're using, because they, as I understand, they went through kind of the same problem, but they have more money to do it. Are we comfortable knowing we are using the correct coagulant?
Their water, when our raw water was tested, Carter Lake and Burton, I believe,
Same.
our water is the same.
So are we using the same coagulant?
Yes.
Are you?
Greg?
Yeah, I guess I realize I'm the first one to admit that people make mistakes. I do it all the time in my business. But we have implemented some of the more important things that we do. We've implemented buddy checks. Okay, like 4473s, when they get put through, three separate people look at them before they get filed away for mistakes. So I guess what my question on this is are we going to, because I realize this was human error, there's nothing in the world we can do about human error, but we can try to minimize human error the best we can by having other people look at the same work. Have we implemented something like that?
Yeah, we have more people.
Well, I mean, how many people you got down there that can make sure that this stuff gets?
We got 2 right now.
So are both people looking at the
Well,
work
right now,
independently?
I have worked 36 hours in overtime since Friday.
Well,
I have not slept.
look, I appreciate your working 36 hours. I do. I appreciate your overtime. But the community can't afford
No.
to do this.
Well,
We're going to have to do it this time and bite the bullet, but we've got to put something in place. We got to.
And that's some of the reasons behind it. Because I think the first time it happened, nobody knows how the dial got true. Because what it is on a dial to do the allotment. And nobody knows. Nobody was around it. It's one of those freak deals out in the know. So that's why we're going to even box the dial in so that you have to open a lock to dial it back or forth if we have to. You know, that's
Can we implement a policy that if we're going to change dosage rates or whatever, that
when they do that, it is written in a log. They have a log that they do any changes, any updates, anything that's happening within a skid, they update in that log on a minute by minute basis if it takes by a minute. Because when they do their CIPs, when they do any valve changers, or if they have a skid go down, they'll write down exactly what time the skid went down, what procedures they went through to get the skid back online. If they have to shut it back down because the valve isn't working or they need to change out a valve, they write that down as to what time they did that. So it's on that, everything is logged as to what goes on.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
I don't think Director Collins was asking if it was wrote down. His question pointed at who's checking what was wrote down. Double check, double check, double check. And that's not what we're hearing is happening. You know, yes, if you lock the box out and somebody makes a change, 2 people have to agree to make that change, I believe is what he's saying. Instead of, did we make a change and did we write it down? Writing it down doesn't catch it.
And we could set up a policy to do that if we need to.
Now, as passing that point, The previous filters were there for approximately 7 years.
Yes.
Now, I find it hard to believe that just turning the dial destroyed the 7-year program. But who made the filters before these? Are they the same company?
It's the same company, but it's a different style. They don't make the filters that we previously had. They went to a wider band. It's like a rubber band in there with a hole in it. And that's how it filters through the water in it. Well, what happened is they went to more like a linguine noodle. You know what a linguine, kind of the flat? That's what they look like now, where they were used to be like a spaghetti noodle. So it gave it a lot more area now to attract and hold the deposits in it. So we don't know whether the design caused part of this too, in the style, but they don't make that series of filters anymore.
So what else is offered out there other than somebody in Australia?
We looked at the other manufacturers for it. It would take a whole retrofit. It would be having to change the skids the way they are, which would be almost double the price.
But will they stand behind
No,
this issue?
they
Because
won't.
whether it's filtered down there or at my house, I've got the same sludge. My filter's plugging up from the same sludge. And I don't use that much water.
It's going to, I forgot the name of the company, but we would have to change pretty much every skid from the header all the way down to the filter.
If we're going to have to replace filters every year, which we can't afford to do, it may be feasible to replace everything. All I'm asking is, where's the information? Give us some more information. We got to have water no matter what we do, but we're not being presented the options. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You taking comments from the peanut gallery?
As long as they're short comments.
My perspective on this, and I'm not intimately involved in that, is that there's a lack of audit trail in the building. And it might be helpful if there was a security system in the building with a registration of who went in, when they went in, when the system was disarmed, when it was armed. That's automatic. And you can get reports on that by the month. So that if something happens, you know who to talk to because of the time frame of the activity and on the security system. That can be done with card access or without. You can have cameras or not. But the cheapest way is to use an alarm system with simple reporting that would cost $30 a month, 35, 40 something, probably. We put it in ourselves. But that would answer the question as to who was, or maybe more importantly, who was not at the building and for how long.
And one of the things that we did do when this did happen is there was only 4 keys out there. I had one, Donnie had one, Gary had one, and Bailey had one. But you also have people within the day that might have went in when the garage door was open and working and hauling in chlorine, acid, whatever at that time. And who knows, maybe one of them bumped it as they were bringing in something. We don't know. And yeah, we've thought of that too, is putting up a camera system in it and going that way. Now that's probably my next step, is to put in a camera.
Mr. Chairman?
To cover all of that.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak just a moment. I 100% agree with Mr. Berg, but I don't think it needs to be just the water. I think the entire community needs to be on this type of lockdown and follow up, whether it be our water department or fuel or tools, repair shops, office supplies. I think we have to have this check and balance everywhere. I yield.
Yes.
Just a quick comment, Mr. kind of back up to how we're going to get the funds to pay for these. I'm in the process right now of finishing up the January financials with all the year-end entries, and so what that's going to do is tell us how much money we had left in December, if any, and where we are in January. So I'd like to get those numbers so that we can see where we land in December to see if we do have that amount of money.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have to get the filters.
Right.
So, I mean, I agree with you 100%. We need to know where the money's coming from. But we gotta get the filters, because I don't know about you, but I want water in my house. So,
I want to know.
so we're gonna have to get the filters one way or the other.
So I guess what I'm saying is if we have the money, we can do that from last year. If we don't, it's probably going to be a budget amendment, and we're going to have to put in writing where we're getting the money.
Do we have enough money in operations to get it out of them?
We budgeted 20,000 for capital for the year. That's at the end of the year, we'll have 20,000. There's 71,000 in depreciation, but again, it's like, I know we have to pay it up front and get it paid over the year, but that's where we are on the budget.
Mr. Chairman.
I yield.
Go ahead.
I agree on the money side. I agree we need water. I would ask the board to consider making this decision at the next meeting, and along with showing us the money, show us if there's any other option out there that may prevent this in 1 year again.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. Greg, when I talked to you earlier today, we talked about, and I talked to Foley, but we're being directed by the state as to inject the coagulant and how much, that kind of a thing. So, is the dosage of the coagulant per state?
It is based on our flows. It's a flow-paced dosage.
But that's directed, as far as the dosage per the flow is directed by the operator from the state.
The state, and it's one of them, if we're high, our flows are high, if we're pumping 600, 900,000 or 900 gallons a minute, you have to keep an eye on that, because what can happen is what happened. I mean, we were low flow, something happened, I don't know.
So if we, I
don't
agree.
really have it's one of them, somebody else is telling us what to do.
Right.
Usually we have a chemist that comes in and
Right.
says,
So,
you need a dose.
and that's kind of
so
what
much
my question also then is that when I asked you earlier today, are you comfortable with what you're being told by this chemist and by your operator? And you said yes. And so,
Yes, I am. They're very smart men.
if we,
They're dealing with Carter Lake and Berthoud. They're doing the same things up there. They're dealing with the same water quality.
so same issue.
Same issue. It's just, it's one of them things.
If we, I don't think we're in a choice. We're going to have to replace those filters. If we do so, can you come up with an update to us about controls of how you're going to handle the dosage and controlling the dosage, controlling access to the dosage? I'm concerned that coagulant is an issue.
Coagulant is an issue. Chlorine dioxide is an issue. Chlorine's an issue. Everything is locked up with the exception of the coagulant. But there's some guys down at that shop, at the other shop, that can build a box and we can put it on there and lock it.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
would certainly approve that.
Yeah,
I'd like to speak this moment. Just putting a box over a control won't necessarily lock that control in place.
no, that nobody. over
Control,
there touch
no,
that
what I'm
button.
getting at, some controls creep. We've seen it, whether it be vehicles or standalone equipment. Controls have a tendency to creep. So just putting a box over it is not going to fix the issue.
Well, is it a mechanical
there.
dial or an electrical dial? So it could creep then.
It can,
my-
yes, sir, it can, but the only way that it's gonna creep is based upon the flow of the plant.
And also.
It's on a 4 to 20 milliamp, based on the flow of how much chemical is gonna go, coagulant is gonna be injected into the system. And the only way that it's gonna get increased is by somebody turning.
But you will also be able to monitor that through our SCADA system.
Through your SCADA system now, you've got an alarm to where if it does malfunction or creep or somebody turns it, you're gonna get alarmed.
And it will be on the main page, isn't it? And you put it from when I.
And is it set to automatically shut everything down, or?
It will give us a warning, and then either Porfy and I have gotta be there pretty damn quick and shut things down.
Is there a way, so what I'm asking is,
If
I
you want
guess-
an automatic shutdown, no. You have to be there.
is there a way for us to install an automatic shutdown? And how
Well,
much?
Or
Yeah.
just on the coagulant.
That's way above my head. I
We'll have to
can't
ask
give you
Jeff.
that.
Might be something we need to talk about, because that way, I don't know how long it takes for the coagulant to be overdosed to ruin the filters, but.
It would take 3 or 4 days.
Which is nothing.
It's not instantaneous, no, sir.
Gotcha, okay.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, last on the list here was, SDA. I know the last time we were
Mr.
talking.
Chairman, I call for a point of order. We started on Mr. Van Meter, we didn't finish.
Oh, well, we had kind of finished. Did anybody, I figured that we would talk to him a little
I
bit.
understand, but it's up in this section, I'd like to.
Okay, do you have a
Speak to that.
comment?
Yes,
Okay,
I do.
go ahead.
Mr. Van Meter, we've all probably read your letter and understand that. Qualified, I think you even overqualified for it. My comments and questions is, why do you want to do it?
Well, that's a good question, but, I've lived here now for about 7 years, and I like the quality of life here. I'd like to keep it that way. But I don't think it's gonna stay that, we're gonna improve the community if somebody doesn't pitch in and take part in the community. And frankly, I was somewhat inspired when I came down here at this meeting and saw what the board of directors goes through, and Jim Ecker, just keeping this thing running. And if I can be of some assistance to the board, then that's what I want to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, now, number 5.
Thank you for volunteering.
Okay, letter from SDA to senators. I know we talked the last time, Harry, about getting a letter together for the state as to our mandates and stuff. This was something that had came through my email from SDA at the beginning of, or the middle of last week, and it deals with grants and federal grants that aren't taking recognition for special districts. I was just wondering if any of you would be interested, and they gave us some district form letters to use that I can fill them out for each one of you. You guys can sign them. We'll send them in as board of directors if you want to do that. It was just an idea that I had that it might be something worth writing our senators and representatives about.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, I would be too.
Okay. So I'll start working on those.
Anything else as part of the study session? If not, I will call the regular meeting to order. Would you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those so inclined, if you'd join me for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Let the minutes reflect that 4 members of the board are present here, and Harry is present on Zoom. So the entire board is present. First item of business is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda has been approved. Next item is the approval of the minutes for the study and regular session of February 9th, 2021.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes for the study session and regular meeting of February 9th, 2021 be approved. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Financial report, Jim?
The one, we had some problems with Casal yesterday, and that's why we didn't get it in today. So we'll have numbers and everything by next meeting for you for sure.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
You know, Jim, I don't think you were here, but we were having extreme issues, I think right before you got here with Cassell, and the board approved looking into possibly QuickBooks or some other thing. Are we still having the problems that would require us looking at another software? Because it seems to be an ongoing issue, and I don't think it's operator error at this point.
We're still having problems. We have a lot of problems with payroll. We've had some problems where our balance sheets are still out of balance. It's not because of anything that we've done, it's because of the software. They're still looking into that. It just depends. The issue yesterday is if there was an account number missing, which shuts down my whole process. I can't finish processing entries. I can't do any other entries until we find out the problem.
Okay. And that's a great explanation.
It's a lot of time. It takes a lot of time.
It's eating your time, which we need you on other things as well. But my point is, do we need to look at this point? Because you've played with it for 2 years now, trying to get it to work, and I know you were against getting different software. You were kind of on the fence at that point, saying, well, let's try it. We have tried it for another year or so, and it's still an issue. What's your thoughts on this going forward? Because it's becoming an issue, not on us as much as you getting done what we need done in certain time frames.
I'd have to think about that. I know the software a lot better now. I know, I can fix certain things that we had problems before without intervention from the support team, but there's a lot of bugs in the software. I've worked with software, accounting software, and I've not seen this many bugs in software.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the manager be directed to bring us a report at the next meeting on their suggestions moving forward on accounting software. That's just my suggestion to the chair.
Well, and it's not just the software and not just the year end. I'm
I
also
understand
have
that.
other duties that I'm taking on.
I understand that.
It's a whole different
It's creating
job
issues.
from when I started.
So I guess what Bob's asking is for you to think about that. And I don't know, Jim, if you have any strong feelings about it. Of course, Yvonne's the primary seller, but
I mentioned Jim because it needs to go through him.
right.
And I know the girls on different issues there has been. I know basically at the beginning of the year, it's kind of a cluster because you have closing out of books, opening of books for the new year. And some of the stuff that I know Yvonne has brought to me and brought to my attention and showing how she has entered something and when she puts it in, it comes back with a different entry than what she put in. So it's a lot of those kind of things. It's like our water plant. It seems like there's a ghost in there too, you know. Everything I turned around, it's kind of a ghost. It's like, what is going on? Why? So.
Jim, right before you got here, the board approved, I think, $3,600 to change software, which was a low number. We all agree with that. But there was issues, and that's why we hear it meeting after meeting after meeting. And all I'm asking is for an honest review at this point, because we have given 2 years to get it under control, and it's still not under control. And I don't think it's the input.
Well, with that too, we've added how many other modules to that in the last 2
The
years?
water meters, budget and financial statements, software.
We've increased our modules within that too.
Right.
So it's part of that is all these modules have got to talk to each other and work with each other as to, and that's I think where our biggest problem is that transforming of from one program to another, that it's not catching this or it's catching this and it shouldn't be, from what I've understood about all of that.
My other concern is historical data. So, like this software system only goes back 3 years. If you want to go back further, you have to actually go into the old software that was here before I came. It's nice to have that historical data where you can just change a date and it'll repopulate everything. I mean, so there's advantages and disadvantages to the software.
So I guess if I heard Bob right, all he's asking is it
there
worth
something
the
else?
conversation to decide if, because regardless of the extra modules, regardless of, you know, we still need reports on time, and I know
Well, you need
that's your goal,
Yeah.
and if this isn't the answer, you know, it's not meaning we necessarily change, but do we need to look into something else? So if I'm going to take Bob's recommendation, and
Okay.
the two of you just, you know, 10-minute conversation, 30-minute conversation between now and next meeting, and kind of share your thoughts with us.
And that's one of the things too, is I have a couple other people that I know they use the programs, and I want to see if they're having the same issues.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Well, and it's also some competing objectives that I have. Do I do payroll and pay people, or do I get my numbers in?
I would suggest you do that one.
I would suggest
But
payroll
that's been my
comes
last
first.
year, plus, you know, the bond refi and everything, so
Sure.
my answer to that is really maybe not the software, but some help.
Okay, then that needs to
But
be.
that would be part of that
That would
conversation.
be
The
part of the
report.
Exactly.
too.
Exactly. If that's the answer, that's the answer. Then we figure out what to do with that answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any operational information?
They did have the divers up today in tank 3. They were trying to put us off till the end of the week, but then I guess they seen how the weather was going to move in tomorrow night that they
So
came
you
in.
do it while it's warm?
Yeah, and especially going up that hill, it's a nice skating rink if it's a little wet. I know Donnie had to use his little side-by-side to haul some of their equipment up, because that road is just terrible. We're gonna have to figure out a way how we can get an easement to get back to the backside of that tank from another way, because right now it's a straight up and down road to it. And I know it's gonna need work too in the future, because if they're doing one, they're gonna be looking at all of them. So that's part of our game plan too, is finding how we can get somebody to get us on their property to come back around. I know in the past there has been bad blood between the manager and the people that own the property, so hopefully we can smooth that out a little bit, but we're working on that. So far, they did all the cleaning today. It wasn't that bad, Donnie said that it wasn't any, but tomorrow will be the inspection side of it to see if there is any, if there's more than 10% where paint is bubbling or whatever. So that will be part of tomorrow. They should be done by noon. Hopefully within about a week they can send me a videotape of all the work that they've done, and we can go through that. If you want to see it, you're welcome to come in and look at it on the computer.
Okay, cool.
What was the other things? Operational wise?
Operational wise, we've got, that's our biggest one. We've still got a screen in tank 1, but the weather has not been where we can get up there. It's either cold, snowy, ice, or wind blowing, and we're not getting up on a tank and screaming.
Yeah, like I said, when we sent out the letters with the last water bill, there was the tank needed to be recoated, and also on tank 2.
Tank 1 and tank 2.
Tank 1 and 2, the screen on it, it has a screen flat in there with the dome. Well, they're worried that a bird's going to fly up underneath the dome and sit on that screen. So we need to also screen that dome in.
Screen the screen.
Screen the screen.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
So and with that, it's we're
yeah.
and talking to them and talking to the inspectors and stuff. They understand the position that we're in. That if it snows or the wind's blowing or whatever, we aren't going to take the safety risk of putting somebody up there and having them slide off that tank. So.
Any operational questions for Jim or Greg?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's one thing that I know we've been trying to get at is in South Park, we needed to change the valve for their swimming pool. We were looking at doing it this Wednesday, but with the divers in, we figured we'd hold it off. It keeps seems like from week to week we're pushing it off, but it's mostly due to weather or whatever. We don't want to have an open hole. And last week we were going to do it, but it was 20 below, so you don't want to do it. I do have some sad news. We are losing Joe Provenza. He is deciding to go out on his own, so that's why we had a job opening for a utility worker 1 coming that went out in the newspaper. And I also have some other news is that Karen is changing her opportunities of where she wants to go, and we'll be putting out an ad for that too for Karen's position.
Just too bad. All right. Statement of conduct and demeanor. In order for the business of the board to be conducted in the most effective and expeditious manner, it is necessary that all persons present maintain a demeanor of civility toward the board, staff, and each other. Conduct that appears threatening or aggressive will not be tolerated. Shouting, speaking out of order, or the use of offensive gestures similarly are not acceptable. Such behavior shall constitute the forfeiture of your right to remain in attendance and may, as a point of order brought to the board's attention by council or any board member, including the chairperson, result in your being asked to leave the meeting by the chairperson or, upon your refusal, being escorted out of the meeting by the proper authorities. We have one gentleman who would like to speak tonight. Vance?
Yes.
If you don't,
Or can I just sit, or?
prefer you stand. Just it's harder to hit you with the tomatoes when you're sitting.
I've been a tractor all day. I'm here, so I think you know why I'm here, or have a general idea.
Okay.
What's going on at the top of Alondra?
We had him remove the wall.
I
We
got
had him move all the rocks. We had him moved out.
well, not all.
And I noticed today.
There's even some walls coming out. I know where the problem
Well, go ahead and
But-
make your spill.
Okay. My main thing is why are we plowing that?
It's one of our roads.
I understand that.
Well-
We need to claim this, but it's a huge mess. The footprint up there of asphalt is approaching 2 to 3 acres, what I'm going off of, just on the 4 lots and plus the whole easement and everything that's put in there. We have that on top of that hill. I mean, look at what the grocery store had to go through for drainage for their parking lot here. I mean, they had to put almost a reservoir. We got this above all these residential places all the way below on the laundry. My thing is, okay, I've been told that we're taking maintenance of this road. All I've seen, and the few residents that have talked to me and my father, who's lived there since 1979, is you're basically plowing a personal driveway to somebody's backyard. Not only that, and it goes, they're the ones that put it there, it goes to their house. They have an access on Lake Mish to the front of their house. I've known several people that have had noise complaints because the semis parked there and running hours on end. I run heavy equipment. I know if it's cold out, you got to warm your damn stuff up, but they're not supposed to be there. And these people have been dealing with this for 20 years or so. And not only that, we got mini Bishop's Castle, one door down. And I just don't understand why we're plowing that for them. I mean, I can understand if we're going in there to set the road and put the original footprint back right and correct, because there's culverts, because the wall was basically in the middle of the road footprint of that top of Laundry there. Well, then they built culverts over the top, besides that. So when they did the road or whatever, the driveway, it makes a huge curve around there too. I went over there the other day. We got water running every direction, directly across to 8087, I do believe, Alondra. Basically everything that'll shoot off that hill and that whole deal is going to go right to their house and then down that side. I just don't understand how we all of a sudden just start plowing it. And then I'm told it's maintenance, but it's a total destruction up there. I mean, not only that, it specifically was built to go to a house, and it goes to that house. So most of the people up there are looking at it, and it's perspective. And I kind of made a point of that last night. It's what they see, and I see it too. It's almost like doing a favor for 2 of the biggest covenant breakers that we've had in this valley for a long time. And nothing's legal there. You would agree, wouldn't you? But there's nothing.
We're trying to do it legal.
I know. My point would be, why aren't we making them? They had the wherewithal, and they still do. All of them there, and they're all in cahoots with the equipment in there. That's always parked there. Now it's not parked there all of a sudden. But, rip it out. Get the hell out of there. Then I don't see any problem having Donnie come back in, put the original footprint back in, at least, to where it was before all this happened. And then if we want to put the road in there, do the correct grade, everything, ditches and everything again, I don't see a problem with that. I don't understand why we're plowing it right now. When basically we're just plowing another driveway for somebody. You know, these people have gone through so much from these two households there over the years with everything else, and now it almost seems like the Metro's doing a favor to them for plowing out their thing when they easily have an access off of Waco Beach.
Did you have a question or a comment?
I'd like to address the chair first. Mr. Chairman, I had this on my agenda stuff to speak on new business, but I would be happy to address it here if the board wishes it here, or I can hold it to new business.
Go ahead while Vance is here.
Okay.
Point of order. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a citizen input.
Yes, sir.
That's all
Okay,
I have.
then they just present the stuff to us and then we address that. We don't address it as citizen input.
And that's why I'm asking to hold till new business.
So you'd rather I wait till new business?
Well, and I think it needs a time limit because citizen input, we only put 5 minutes on it. And we're not
Well,
gonna
no, I haven't observed a time limit for some time, but we can wait till new business. Vance, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I do have it on my list for new business.
Okay. I turned in a trash dump on January 12th to Donnie, and I just noticed the other day that it's still there.
Where is it at?
Down in the creek by the going towards the spillway. It has been there's the little 4-wheeling road that goes down the creek there.
Where at? Where at?
Going to the spillway.
What's going?
Hickland Ditch.
All right.
Where? Huh? Right when you turn, right when you go across
Are you
it.
talking, man?
Huh?
At the head gate?
Yeah. When you go across the ditch, and then you go where you guys put the fence across the road.
Yeah. On
Down,
the
you know where they all
other side,
4-wheel down that hill, but somebody put a huge dump down there.
We've cleaned it up twice.
I know, but
I'll tell you that.
I turned this one in on the 12th, and I just noticed the other night I was down there and it's still there.
Yeah.
And I know I found some personal letters, and I gave them to Donnie, and I was just wondering what was going on with that.
Donnie didn't tell me anything about
I just noticed it was
I
still
know,
there.
maybe you just had his
So,
guys go down and clean it
Was
up.
there, if you don't mind, sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Was there personal letters in the
There was
dump
one that I found from Pikes Peak Community College.
addressed to individuals here in the community?
Pueblo.
Has that been turned over to the sheriff?
I turned it over to Donnie, which he said he would turn
The
it over.
sheriff would probably be where that should be turned over.
I was just wondering because it's been, and it is in the creek basically. You know, it's in the.
Yes.
A lot of it's blowing in there and stuff, and it's pretty nasty. I mean, we're talking diapers and huge.
And the best thing is with, your custody of evidence and stuff.
Yeah.
Is if you do see it, call the sheriff to come down and pull it out. Don't pick it up because me handing it to you and me calling the sheriff to get it.
I've had a little previous experience with this, with, back in the day with the Metro, and I would usually turn it in. They'd turn it over to the health department. Somebody would get from the health department would get with me, we'd go look at it, and then they would take it or whatever with the sheriff or whatever. I was just wondering if it was still there.
Thank you.
And if it is nasty and it's basically
Let me know. Give me a call and I'll get the health department involved with it.
One thing, this just came up tonight from the talk, and listening to about the water and stuff and filters and seeing who did what. And what is our security on our buildings? Do we have security? Do we know if somebody would break into them?
They're locked facilities, but
Yeah, I understand that, but in this day and age, you would think we would have cameras, we would know anybody that went in there, and we definitely want to know if somebody broke in and poisoned our water or something, You would want to know immediately if somebody's in there, you would want to look like it'd be on your phone or whatever. We got range systems and stuff. It'd immediately alert you or, several other people what's going on, and you can see who's in the building and what's going on. And then if something happens, like you guys were discussing, and you don't know how it happened and it was a ghost, well, you might find the ghost on the video,
No, I agree.
Yep.
In this day and age,
This is the multitude of things that I look at every
I know. But I would say, I dealt with railroad. I worked at Progress Rail. We're right next to Comanche Power Plant. A couple years after 9/11, all of a sudden I was out there on one of our roads, and also I have guys running around everywhere. And it was the FBI, and they're like, they were doing secure checks there, you know, just in case for Comanche Power Plant. And they're like, well, what are you doing out here? This is our road, you know. I mean, you can just come right off the line road and come across here and go into the power plant. And that was back then. It just, when you guys were discussing that, I just thought that was that's our water supply, you know. Not only that, equipment too. You know, like we were saying, you know, keep track of equipment and everything.
Very good. Thank you, Vance.
I think that's all I have. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I call for a point of information.
Okay.
I'd like to be excused for a couple of minutes to go to the office.
All right.
Go ahead and continue. I can
Okay.
listen.
All right. No attorney's report, Jim?
No.
Okay, agenda items. Actually, Bob, you'll want to be involved in all of this.
I just have to be able to step away for a moment.
Okay. Okay, go ahead into the agenda
I
items.
have an offer for Unit 17, lot number 9. It's 1.9 acres. Their offering is $12,414. It is zoned I-2 by the county and also with Colorado City. There is no comps, as Bob said, with it. They told me they couldn't find anything that was within line for the last 2 years or year or anything that they could make it comparable.
Okay.
Or just didn't compare
Well,
what they
or
wanted.
compare.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion at this time that we send this back to them to complete and bring us some comps like we ask in our rules for purchasing property.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to return the application for the property sale of Willis Unit 17, Lot 9 for completion. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, my concern is that we won't find recent comps. I'm afraid that by asking them to bring us comps, we will get dated comps, and that would be hard to refuse at that point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
So even dated comps would be better than nothing.
So my position would be, I would suggest that we just reject the offer, simply reject the offer.
Greg, you have the motion on the floor.
There's a motion and a second. If you would like to amend,
Yeah, would you like to amend it?
I don't know if you can amend it.
you can kill the one that's already on the floor. Just vote to kill it. Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
Okay. So what we have on the floor is to return the contract to the person who sent it to us and ask that it be completed. All in favor, let's go
Online.
go by vote. Bob, how do you vote? Chair votes yes. Greg?
Yes.
No.
No. Harry?
You gotta unmute yourself, Harry.
Harry?
You're muted.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Motion carries. The contract will be returned.
And may I state something real quick?
Sure.
So, just so you understand, just because we're returning it to them doesn't mean we need to accept what they come back with.
All right. CTF agreement with Pueblo County. Jim?
Like I said, this is a CTF agreement with Pueblo County, saying that we are going to follow through with scope of services and all the regulations that go along with it. It just needs to be signed by us, and then we'll send it back to them, and now commissioners will sign it, bless it, and we can get our funds.
Okay. Anyone, I need a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we sign this agreement and return it to Pueblo County.
It's been moved that we sign the CTF agreement with Pueblo County. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Okay, Chair will vote first on this. I vote yes. Greg?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes?
Bob?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 3, filters for the water.
So,
From what I gathered from the study session, you want me to come back with more options, with more prices as to warranties, if there's any warranties, the cost, if we do have to go with something different compared to what we have.
so I'd make a motion that we table this
To the next
until
meeting.
next meeting.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Moved and second that we table pending more information from the district manager. Discussion?
And, finance options. Where money's gonna come from.
My question is this, if we delay till March and go ahead with what we're doing, are we gonna have the filters here by the time we need?
No.
Mr. Chairman, we're only talking 2 weeks.
I know we're talking 2 weeks. Greg, you don't think they'll be here?
No. They're gonna get held up in customs for 2 weeks. It's gonna, who knows how far behind in production they are.
Okay.
I mean, this is we've got March and April. And when the end of April, middle of April, if it starts warming up, then it's Katie bar the door.
And how long did they tell you it was gonna take?
I don't know.
They don't even
No, not you, Greg. I'm talking.
They don't even know.
They don't know how long it's gonna take.
They don't know. They said it could be anywhere from 2 months to 4 months to get them. And it's like Greg said, it depends on customs.
So even if we order them now, we're probably not going to have them until the middle of summer.
Yeah, and we're already behind the 8 ball.
So,
Okay, I have a motion on the floor that we table the purchase or the filters for the water plant till the next meeting. And it's been moved and seconded. That's why I brought us back to the motion after the discussion. Greg, how do you vote?
yes.
Neil?
No.
Harry?
No.
Mike, Bob?
Yes.
Chair votes no. So what we did is voted against tabling the motion. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we direct the manager to create a purchase order for those filters.
So, Neil, I understand the no votes. I mean, yes votes. So we have the purchase order. Is there any reason we can't you can't include in your motion to look at options anyway?
I would absolutely like to see options. On the same token, I'm afraid we're behind the 8 ball.
Well, I'm not saying, I mean, the first part of your motion is to purchase them, basically.
If we
Mr.
don't
Chairman,
make
let me
a commitment
clarify.
to purchase them,
Mr. Chairman,
we
may
won't
I
have
clarify?
it.
Just a second.
I'm afraid that if we don't make that commitment to purchase them, then we're further behind the 8 ball.
Okay. Bob?
He said create a purchase order. He didn't say purchase the filters. I would like clarification on this motion.
So, if I may, real quick.
Well, Neil has the floor.
would like to see options. If we could, what I would like to, however we could do it, I'd like to see us get them moving from Australia. If we could get them into the States, and like you said that there was maybe somebody else could use them, but if we could get them moving to us or to the States, to where we wouldn't have to wait till August to get them.
Can I speak?
You
One
may.
of the things that I'm looking at is I can get with them to see if I give them a PO as to, okay, within 2 months or something that
Could we cancel it?
can we cancel it, and is there any repercussion as to it, or if there's something that way? You know what I'm saying? As
Do we give you a PO and do we get a grace period
yeah,
to cancel that PO?
Even if there was some kind of penalty.
if there was a penalty that if we didn't take them, if something broke free,
Because
and
they have to
miracle cure for these filters, you know.
Or if we find a system that is gonna be a lot more, cause we find.
Okay,
Cheaper and friendly.
let's go back to Neil. You may leave your motion as it is, or you may change it.
Okay, I'll change it. I make a motion to direct manager to create a purchase order with, and to find if there's a possibility of canceling that purchase order even with a small penalty, if we find a better source.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor that the district manager be directed to create a purchase order and also find out what the penalty for cancellation might be. Is that what you said?
I'll second it.
I have a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to discuss that for just a moment.
You may.
Creating the purchase order also comes with finding the finance. We're going to need to know where the funds are coming from, the availability of the funds, and we need to know when shipment will be. For instance, if you order something from Amazon, they give you an approximate ship date and an approximate arrival date.
And I'm guessing with the purchase order, that would be a reasonable expectation, wouldn't it?
The biggest problem with these filters is they have to be in a climate-controlled transport. It can't be low or it can't be too high, because each filter is sealed with either water or some kind of stuff in them to keep them from drying out. They're packaged. And I don't know if that's possible. I can ask when I'm going through all of this scenario as to where it was. The last ones that we did buy, I know there was a thought that they came from Chicago and we had a snowstorm at that time. To me, it wasn't a truck that was climate controlled, but they said it was.
Yeah, they do that all the time. I used to be a trucker.
Yeah.
Okay, any other further discussion?
And so that could be part of this reason with these filters too. And I fought with them for 3 months with them.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Neil, you're first up. Let me repeat the. We are directing the district manager to issue a purchase order and at the same time explore the drop dead date that we could cancel and if there is any kind of penalty associated with that. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend the motion to include calling a special meeting if needed to expedite matters.
Is that all right with you, Neil? Okay.
That's fine
So,
with me.
issue a purchase order. Remember that you have the ability to call a special meeting if we can expedite the order and get as much information as you can as a drop dead date of cancellation and any penalty associated with it. And you said, Greg, it's all right with you as
Yes,
far as
yes.
second? Okay, Neil, how do you vote?
Greg, did you have?
Yeah, there's not many companies that make these filters, so it's gonna be really hard for our district manager to come up with.
Well, he may not be able to find
May
out.
not be able
I
to,
mean,
but you gotta try.
that is, Siemens is Siemens.
Yeah.
Or local or DuPont. I mean, our district managers, they only make them for certain things. And we just happen to have one of those certain things.
And we're open to an immediate special meeting if necessary.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, you've already called the question.
Neil, how do you vote?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes,
Bob?
Yes.
did you hear me?
Yes, sir. Chair votes yes. Greg?
Yes.
Motion carries. And, does anyone have any questions for Rick? See, I don't mispronounce his last name if I just call him by his first name. And will you be doing your own background check? That's the thing.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the volunteer position of Mr. Rick Van Meter.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Bob, you're the first vote on that.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Greg?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes,
Motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
My condolences, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Please don't hold it
I'd like to
against
call for a
me.
3-minute adjournment.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take a couple-minute break, and we'll reconvene with old business.
Yes.
My concern, I guess, on the dining with comps, my concern is that, as far as I'm concerned, we're not locked in.
If they can bring the comps in.
This is so.
But if they're smart, okay, they're gonna bring me a couple comps from Walsenburg.
I'll bet they don't.
And then, well, if they're smart, because then we're allowed, they're not treating us like super, and we're allowed to. Obviously, our industrial park is not worth it. Okay, and obviously, it's not worth it. Well, if they're smart, and they sign some comps that are actual comps, acreage and everything, that we're $50,000. $30,000. Then I was coming to the conclusion the property's worth 15.
What would you?
I would say that it's probably not big. That's me guessing. If we get some comps, at least some comps, even if they're out of Pell or Walsenburg, at least then we know what they're going for in those prices. Because our property worth is
It
could be. It very well could be. Now, if the industrial property sells for $100,000 in that size, and they'll go in 75 in Walsenburg, then it's worth $50,000. Now, if those industrial properties in Pebble are selling for $50,000, then we're probably at $25,000.
See, now, I'll tell you one project. We're selling or properties, 2 acre plots, 1.5 acre properties, residential properties, and water and sewer are selling for 25.
So also understand that the commercial market is a lot less. It has not boomed like the housing market. Because I am buying commercial properties right now, right next to Walmart, okay, and I'm buying a quarter acre for $80,000. Right next to it. And
So I
mean, because that's, you can't get into a better business area. I mean, and a quarter acre for $80,000 for commercial property. You know, and it's like the realtors told me, the commercial property does not take off in Colorado like residential property does. So, and we make that mistake a lot.
The county actually carries it past the house, don't they, on paper?
Are you ready, Bob?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go back to order. Old business.
Old business, last meeting, you directed me to use Mr. Finger as our real estate attorney. I'm still doing research on the covenant lawyers out of Springs that he gave me, so until I can get a contact with all three of them, I'll get you a report on that.
Any other old business?
Under that same thought of using the attorney, I'd like to speak this moment. You had mentioned that in the campgrounds you had asked a few people to vacate. Did you issue a notice to vacate?
No, they actually were, they just left.
Okay, they did leave.
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't have to go to that extent.
Well, going forward, I suggest to the board that the manager be instructed to properly document everything and issue a notice to vacate. That doesn't have to go before the attorney, but if we have to go to the attorney, he's going to ask us, where's your notice to vacate?
Discussion? That makes sense to me.
It does make sense to me too.
Okay.
Within our rules and stuff for the campground,
No, that's just anything you do as a,
I know, but
entity.
within our rules, we have the right to ask
Yeah.
them to leave at any point.
right, but we need to document that right with the proper documentation. And you can download the form, it's called a notice to vacate.
Okay.
That's just a CYA.
Any new business?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on new business.
All right, sir.
I have been following along some of the Facebook posts and some phone calls of the plowing issue that was brought up earlier. Now, I had a couple of thoughts on it, and that's why I asked for a break earlier to pull some documentation from the office. This road is the one that Mr. Palcick's on, if anybody's not aware of it. Actually, Mr. Palcick lives on Waco Mish. This is his backyard driveway. Now, I don't know who wrote all this down and when they adopted stuff, but it says on our road maintenance list that we will maintain Alondra Drive to the end of the cul-de-sac. Well, we've not been doing that. First off, Donnie doesn't go to the end of the cul-de-sac. That's even further down. And we are maintaining to those residences, as he said, basically a private drive. There is one house on the curve of Alondra where the Pueblo County carries the pavement to just past that house. I would suggest that we amend the road maintenance list here to not plow past the pavement.
Okay.
Because there are no houses and no build permits on that road, nor is there, I think, water and sewer on it. I think there's one or the other, but that doesn't matter. I'm not doing it because of the water and sewer. I'm doing it because there's no other houses there. The other properties have access through Waco Mish. This is just a backyard. It would be sort of like issuing or saying Donnie plowed the easement drive in Applewood where everybody accesses their propane tank.
Okay. Thoughts?
Okay.
You may.
So their primary residence addresses are on Waco Mish.
Yep.
And their primary egress is on Waco Mish.
Correct.
So yeah, I agree 100%. Why in the world are we plowing a drive that has no houses on it?
Well, the only reason, go reading through all of this, and Donnie isn't here to defend himself.
I'm not after Donnie.
No, what I'm saying though is, I know why Donnie probably goes so he can turn around and come back. Now, you do have that one house that is there, so you want him to push past that house?
The pavement already extends beyond that house.
Okay, I'm trying to get this clear.
Actually, the list says Alondra, and we only go 150 feet past Red Cloud.
Oh, really? Because mine says
No, that's
Alon-
Patty's Court we do Cayuse Court, all of that cul-de-sac.
This is Alondra Drive to end of
Yeah,
cul-de-sac,
but
it
if
says.
you look on the right side, it says Cayuse Court. See right here, where it says Cayuse Court, this is the road, and this is from Alondra to the end of the cul-de-sac. So on Alondra, we only do Red Cloud heading west 150 feet.
But we don't go on that. We're still on Alondra. Alondra stays back behind.
Right, but
So-
we're only said
Right.
we will go 100 feet past Red Cloud. It doesn't say that we'll go any farther
But I
than
don't
that.
think it turns off of Red Cloud, does it?
Yes.
Yes.
It does. That's Red
Alondra-
Cloud.
Alondra goes this
Alondra
way
goes
and
up this way, and then
Red
Red
Cloud-
Cloud
Where
goes
does
up.
Red Cloud
Makes an
begin then?
intersection.
right at that intersection.
That's the intersection
Right.
then.
It's
Okay.
Red Cloud,
Right.
yeah.
So there is still the 150 feet of
150
pavement there.
feet,
Right.
yeah.
So he should not be exceeding that pavement anyhow, so I withdraw my.
Gotcha.
Well, and I think, like I said, the only reason he has.
I understand
further
that.
Is to turn around to come back and.
Right,
catch
but
it.
he can just push and stop.
Okay. Any other new business?
Probably makes it quicker for him to turn around, but
Yes.
yeah, I get that.
And once you get your momentum going, that will.
Any other new business? Okay, CCACC.
Okay, you have, for spreadsheet there, the new house builds. I was able to get all of that together for you for that. As for what we've done since the committee has started, we have, 5 houses and 1 garage. 2 of them are on E-Ray that we tabled last meeting. We have a garage on McIntyre. We have 3 other houses, 1 on Cummings, 1 on Jefferson, and another one on Jefferson. All of them, I went out and looked at the areas. It's a muddy mess. The ones on Jefferson, I really didn't get to get out and walk and measure on them. Mr. Bob Smith, he went out and looked at them too, as to where they were staked. When we start building, we're gonna have to go out and remeasure it to make sure. But they looked like they were in positions and where they needed to be. All the applications, they have what zone, everything for each one. As to the only ones that I ran across were the ones on Jefferson. They will be in R4s instead of R1s.
So there are R1 county, R4 us,
It's R4, county ones, I think they were R4 too.
R4.
For those 2 on Jefferson, they were both R4s for Colorado City and for Pueblo County. They all meet their requirements and covenants for size. And as for the flat lines, they do meet the requirements for setbacks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to speak on this matter.
You may.
Again, we have 6 constructions, and we have 1 action. But guess what? That action is a new action. Where are the old actions at?
That's, we went through what Larry's given me. I went through to see I know there are some that are out there, I do not know. I'm still trying to research them.
How can we move forward on approving a house when we can't even approve a trash can?
So do you have the spreadsheet
Yeah, the spreadsheet.
included, wasn't it?
But this
As
is,
to what was sent out, where we're at. These are the ones that I had that I could pick up, and I know there's some of them that have changed. There was a complaint on a trailer on Virginia, that trailer is gone. There is some complaints that they have picked up the trash in their lot. Tonight, when I was driving, I found another lot that has tires on it. It isn't on there, but I know it's a complaint that I can write.
I'm not asking what you could write. I'm asking about the ones that have been complained about for a year now.
And
So
we're
for a
trying to
year,
catch
we
up
don't
with
even
all
have
of
a
it.
good list for the year.
So where's the?
We're trying to catch up on it. I'm trying to catch up
If
on it, Bob.
You're saying we're trying to catch up, but we're putting these other people ahead of the ones that are already on the list.
Okay, Greg has the floor.
I'm just wanting to say that I don't think the back and forth here is doing anybody any good right now. Okay. However, I will agree that some way, somehow, we need to get this done.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
Because we have to start processing this stuff and taking care of it in a timely manner.
Yes. I agree.
I yield the floor.
Other discussion, other thoughts?
I think the trash can thing is a different issue than the building permit thing that we're dealing with. But I think that each one of those, he's looking at those right now because you got to look at if you put a fence up or whatever you're putting up, you got to make sure that you can get the truck in to get the trash can out because you can't move it once it's full. And it would open up a can of worms, and we don't know if we want to go down that can of worms right now. But that has, we're still looking at those. And I think, as I said, when I looked at a lot of Larry's stuff that he gave in, that's law and court tested. The trash cans aren't court tested right now because that's a covenant. That's not a state law. But things dealing with the county are. They've been proven. Yield.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion we approve the new bills. I see no reason to not approve all of them. Unless somebody else come up with a reason, I'd like to make a motion to approve them all as a batch.
Okay.
And I second it.
What'd you say, Harry?
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the new bills. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I point out again that we're picking and choosing. These new bills came after the complaints, so therefore we should not be approving something until we approve everybody or disapprove everybody. This is an ongoing problem for over a year now, and it needs to be rectified. I yield.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, go to the vote. Bob, you're first.
No.
Chair votes yes. Greg?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
New bills pass. Action on B.
Like I said, I went through my list and what I had. I know there was some more out there. I was able to get letters sent out this last week to the bottom of my list. I do have one that came in last week or a week before on V-Hill. It's just like somebody was doing a construction project or interior remodeling and they had left stuff outside the building. The board or the committee said it would be best to send them a good neighbor letter to see if they'll just clean up their mess.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to send 5013 Diesel Drive a good neighbor letter.
I'll second it.
I've got a motion and a second to send the good neighbor letter to the V-Hill Drive address. Comments, thoughts, discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's odd that the manager loses the complaints but finds a new complaint. This is getting beyond ridiculous. We know there was complaints. We know we can pull them if we need to. And yet we're approving something he just comes up with. This is again picking and choosing. we know for a fact, and I have drove you around and Neil around and other people around to show the same properties that have not been addressed for over a year now. This man simply has to say, you didn't do nothing to them, so don't bother me with your letter. If you send the letter to him and he rejects it, be aware that he has the right to reject it because you are not following your own rules that state that if you send a letter, and the manager just said he sent letters, I don't know who he sent them to and where he got the authorization, but if he just sent letters, how are we going to prove it? How are you going to go by those timelines?
Okay. Other discussion?
Call the question.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to send the good neighbor letter to the address on V Hill. Chair votes yes. Greg?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Bob?
No.
Motion carries. So, when you say, Jim, you're putting stuff together, do we have the list of the letters we already sent?
Yes, and that was what was voted on by the board.
Right.
Like I said.
Right.
The last ones that I just sent out, yes, I haven't had time until this last week to sit down and get them. They were voted on in November.
Right. So the time that the letter says is well past.
Mm.
But we haven't taken any other action.
We haven't sent out second letters out or any of the others. I've had calls for the dumpsters as to what they're recommending or what they're looking at doing that Bob has talked to, that have called me. I haven't been out there personally to see whether it would work or not for them or for us. You know, my job is all over the place.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, thank you.
So first of all, I'm not entirely too certain what I'm about to say we can do. But you know how I am with volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. I think volunteers in this type of a community, in this size of community, keeps all of our bills affordable and our taxes affordable. So my question would be is why can't we use the volunteers that we got here to take care of those letters, and then you just offer, you know, after we've approved to send them out, the volunteers take care of drafting them so they can get done in a timely manner, and then you, because it's just a generic letter, isn't it? We're not. We just got to change the addresses and names and the violation, right?
And put in what the covenant says.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not going to be a huge time-consuming letter because they're already going to have a template to follow.
Somewhat, yes.
So we turn that over to the volunteers to draft them. You approve them and mail them. That can't take that much time.
I agree.
Utilize them a little bit better.
If they're already reviewing them, why aren't they writing it on the letter?
Well, that's part of it. Is
so
do you want this on their computers? Do you want me to let them use that?
Well,
no, the computers stay in this building. The computers have to stay here.
The ultimate approval of whether we send those letters is up to us.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Where it's a second letter, it's probably in all likelihood going to be approved that we send the second letter. I mean, I know the committee meets on a regular basis. Not that they should take the action in hand.
Do we need so what are you saying about computers? Do we need to set up? We can set up a computer. Shoot, I got one at the house. I'll donate to Metro.
Well, no, what I'm saying is
we can set up a computer here for them to use if that's what you're asking.
And that's probably what I'm going to have to do is have a computer that they have access to do
absolutely.
that.
That's all open record.
Set one. I've got one at the house. I'll donate to you.
And I could probably end up using one of our old ones that was Windows 7 to do that.
Yeah.
The thing is, May I, Mr.
I'm
Chairman?
not,
Are you done with it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. They're already looking at the covenants. They've got to make a note of what the violation is and what the covenant is.
To tell us.
That's right, to tell us. So why not just write it on the sheet of paper right there? I don't care if it's handwritten in there. And then we're approving them. What is the issue?
I'll give you the issue.
Okay.
That it is,
The issue
I
is-
think,
I'm sorry, Harry. Larry, he's talking.
The
I'll come
issue
back
is
to you.
that the covenants have not been enforced.
No, but
Mr.
that's
Chairman,
not your-
Just a minute,
Yeah.
just a minute.
Look, point of order.
Just a minute. I recognize Larry. I want him to have a chance to
The
speak.
covenants have not been enforced. Legally, they are abandoned. And if you represent to the community, you send a letter out to the community that you're in violation of a covenant that is legally abandoned, I think that's a class 6 felony. Now,
Mr. Chairman.
Here's my suggestion. Take this circumstance to Carolyn Stifel and get a reading from her on, do we abandon the complaint or should we go ahead and send a letter? And that'll get Jim off the hook. It'll get everything moving, or it'll throw it in the trash because it doesn't belong to anything that should be actionable.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Harry's next. Bob, then you. Harry, go ahead.
well, I think when Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but when you send out those letters, each letter tells the people exactly the violation they have on that letter.
Correct.
Am I not? Okay. So I think the big issue is the second and third and fourth letters, because maybe we may have to revisit all that, because we don't want to get in a bunch of lawsuits because we're not legally liable. I mean, we're not in a position to do things, and I think we need to listen to Larry and listen to our attorney, and because they know what's going on. I'm sorry, but the covenants are a different issue, and I think we just need to use some common sense and not get ourselves legally in trouble.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
The
sir.
covenants are not different issues from building. Let's just straighten that out right now. Covenant is a covenant, whether you're building or you got trash. Now, this gentleman and this gentleman over here has spent $6,000 with the attorney. They're telling us to call the attorney. I called the attorney 2 weeks ago. She said, no problem, follow your rules. That's what the attorney says do.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
So, wow. This is so simple, and I'm sorry, but both of you guys, actually all three of you, are overthinking the plummet here. Okay? Nobody's on the hook but this board. It's the only people on the hook. Okay? This board gets to make the decision. Nobody else gets to make the decision. The board does. We don't have to vote to enforce a covenant. Okay? Don't have to vote to enforce it. Nobody can tell us how to vote. Each one of us has to make that decision on how we vote. But we should not have people keeping the information from us and allowing us to vote on this matter. It should be brought before this board, and then we get to vote the way we want to vote. All five of us. And then either the covenants are... Now, Mr. Cook over here is going to blow a freaking gasket when I say this, and that's all right. I'll let him blow a gasket. If we decide to abandon and not enforce a covenant, not abandon is the wrong word, but if we decide to not enforce a covenant, then we have to be consistent with that not enforcing the covenant across the board. That's the way I see it. Now,
I agree with
other
you.
people might have different views on that, but that's the way I see it. It doesn't mean that I can not, that we decide to vote not to enforce this covenant and we decide to vote to enforce this covenant, that we're treating things differently. No, we're not. We're treating things differently if we vote to enforce this covenant on a set of people and then vote to not enforce the same covenant on a different set of people.
Well said, Greg. Well said.
I yield.
Larry?
The fallacy here is that you don't have the right to enforce an unenforced. That's up to the common law courts. And so the process is that you look at what the complaint is, get the circumstance, and then you go to the court cases, and case law says whether or not you have the right to enforce or not enforce based on the circumstance. Okay? That's the way case law works. Common law, chancellery law, we brought it to Colorado from England. Okay?
What?
That's the way the law is, but the board doesn't decide. The board doesn't have the right to decide because it's in the hands of the common law courts. That's the fallacy. So the question is, when you get a complaint, this was on the video from the special district that everybody watched. You get the complaint, you check the circumstance, then you check the case law to see if that circumstance has been adjudicated. If it has, you are bound by case law to follow that ruling on that set of circumstances. And the circumstances in this case are that the trash cans have sat for 35 years. If they sat for 2 years and nobody says anything about it, it's abandoned. That's case law. Now, my suggestion is take this circumstance, give it to the attorney, and say, can we enforce or can we not enforce? Let her decide. And if she says do it, send the letters. But if she says you cannot do that because this law is abandoned and you represent it as being enforced, that's a felony. That's the problem. And you can't pass it off to Jim. I know you're shaking your head. You can't pass that off to Jim because then he's guilty as well.
No, Jim's not guilty. It's the board's decision. That's what I'm trying to explain.
It isn't. It's case law.
No, it's not.
Well,
Okay,
it's the laws of the land. Ask the attorney and you're done.
I've done that.
We've asked the attorney several times on this, and she said that the covenants are enforceable. Because I would love nothing less than to throw them all out. Okay, but she has told us several times that the covenants are enforceable.
Do we have that in writing?
Yes.
okay. Enough excitement for tonight.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion and a second on the floor.
That's right. We have a motion to send the good neighbor letter to 5013 V Hill. Greg, you're the first vote on that.
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Bob?
No.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Okay, the only other item of business tonight on the agenda is we're going to go into executive session. The only thing that I can't say that for sure. I don't anticipate anything other than adjourning when we come out of executive session. I did want to let the board know that I will be back next meeting. I will open the meeting, and then the first item on the agenda, I'm going to resign as chairman. Not resign from the board, resign as chairman. So I wanted to let the rest of you know that so you can give some thought to who you might feel would be an appropriate replacement. But I will start the meeting and turn it over to Greg at that point, and I'll have a written resignation at that point. Don't want to fuel the flames on social media. I am not leaving the board. I merely am resigning as chairman. At this time, then, I need a motion to go into executive session. And if whoever makes the motion would please read it off the paper so we do it correctly, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I move to enter executive session pursuant to 24-6-4024F CRS for discussion of a personnel matter involving the evaluation of District Manager James Ecker, who was previously informed of the meeting.
Very good. I call the regular session. Oh, I'm sorry.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? If not, I will register that as an affirmative, and we will move into executive session. Thank you, gentlemen.
maybe just cut down the time and come back.
Sir,
Let's see, Jim, what
This
section
is
was
your
that
list
information
of all
about?
roads maintained
You in?
from where into, and that's the one in question, that's why we didn't
Nine?
change it.
Oh, okay.
Because it does clearly state it right there.
And that's about
That's
exactly
fine.
where that
You've got
driveway
that,
is
if you want
at.
to post that, that's fine.
Well, I knew that.
I know,
Okay, I wanted Providence.
Well,
Thank
that's-
you very much.
not a problem.
Thanks for coming, Rance.
Thank you.
I think it will start a new one, so when you hit record, I think it starts a new one.
I need to make a pit stop, so it'll.
Yeah, me too. I'll be right behind you. I'll let you go first.
Terry, do you have your pen?
I do.
Let me see if I put, nope, never mind, I need Greg. I didn't put you on these meetings because you were not here.
That's all right.
Is he in your office or is he in that?
I'm not sure.
I didn't know, like, on this.
No, that's fine, I'm glad you found it, because
Well, that's what I was like.
I was still looking at it.
Well, I was like, Alondra isn't a cul-de-sac, and that's what was clicking in my brain.
Right.
So, that's,
I remember seeing the pavement when you
Right.
said it.
Recording.